This meeting of the School Board of the City of Virginia Beach is now in session. This is our formal meeting format. At this time, I ask that my colleagues and everyone in attendance please silence their electronic devices and phones. I ask my colleagues to acknowledge their presence on the voting board. Still look over there. This time, I'm asking everyone to join me in a moment of silence. Please rise as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We do not have any awards or recognitions this evening. Dr. Spence, we look forward to hearing the superintendent's report.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chairwoman and members of the board. So as we return back from our Thanksgiving break, I hope you and our community had the opportunity to celebrate and spend quality time with friends and family like I did. Before we left for the break, there was a special student-led event at Cox High School. Student organizations there came together to help support a local need in our city by making hundreds upon hundreds of meals to donate to Union Mission, and they did all of this in less than half an hour. Tonight's Compass Keeper is Kenzie Wall, a Cox High School senior and the chair of the lunch bag packing event. Through her efforts, not only did those who otherwise would go hungry receive a meal, but she's also set the example of servant leadership for her classmates. So let's hear from Kenzie.
1,600 sandwiches, I think it's just important sometimes to get away from all the stress of school and homework and get, like, when you get caught up in all the little things, to just like step back and really see the bigger picture and, you know, do something that's bigger than yourself. People from all over the school come to participate in an event that's on a Friday evening after school, which is really energizing to see everyone come. Literally, people just have to put a piece of turkey, a piece of cheese, or spread a little bit of mayonnaise to help with the event, and by the end of 25 minutes, we have 1,600 sandwiches. I think that it teaches me that if you get like a group of people who are motivated to do something, to make a change, that it doesn't take much effort if you have everyone, you know, helping you, supporting you behind it.
She's a philanthropist, first and foremost. She loves to help the community. Any project, leadership project that she can do that helps with the community, she is on. She wants to take charge, she wants to organize it, and get as many people involved as possible.
You can get really caught up in all of the stress with schoolwork, clubs, your family, friends, but sometimes it's nice to just sit back and maybe do something nice for someone else.
When you see her, you know she is on a mission to get something done. Whether it's grabbing, you know, a teacher to participate in a talent show, or getting kids to sign up for Mr. Cox, or getting kids to do a hashtag bag lunch, or, you know, getting different organizations to do hoodies for the holidays. When you see her coming, that girl is on a mission.
I always just hope that, like, when we're doing these events like Lunch Bag, and when I'm up there on the stage, like, talking in the microphone, I'm hoping that maybe, like, it's inspiring others to do maybe similar events, or maybe just smaller acts of kindness, just like, you know, giving someone a compliment, or thanking them for holding the door. It doesn't have to be something massive like this. I mean, events like these are awesome and everything, but sometimes it's the smaller acts of kindness that, you know, go unnoticed.
I think it's awesome. I think these kids see what she does. I definitely think they're following her lead. It's going to be sad when she leaves, but I know that we have a lot of underclassmen that are just as phenomenal.
Well, Kinsey probably said it best. It's amazing to think of the possibilities when you have an engaged and inspired group of people working together. Unfortunately for us, Kinsey could not be here tonight due to a family emergency, but we didn't want to miss this opportunity to commend her as well as that entire school community for their efforts. You know, as we talk about social emotional development and talk about promoting the participation of our students in community service in order for them to feel connected to the wider community, this event, as well as the hoodies for the holidays, are really excellent examples of student ownership. So we wish Kinsey and we wish Cox High School the best as they gear up for their next endeavor. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. That completes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Spence. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on agenda items this evening?
No, we do not.
Thank you. I passed out to the board earlier during our workshop an amended version of the minutes from the November 13th meeting, and there was a small revision just for clarification purposes. So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of our November 13th meeting as amended. The motion is made by Mrs. Rye, seconded by Mrs. Riggs. The voting board is open. Please note in the minutes that Mrs. Weems and Mrs. Holtz abstained due to their absence on November 13th. The chair will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda for this evening. The motion is made by Mrs. Manning, seconded by Mrs. Holtz. The voting board is open. The agenda has been adopted. Under the consent agenda, we have several new courses and textbook adoptions. Consent agenda A includes a textbook adoption for the Nursing 1-2 program. Part B includes the new secondary courses for environmental science, the technical and career education courses of digital applications, economic and personal finance, technology transfer capstone, and the licensed pharmacy technician program. Consent agenda item C is the comprehensive evaluation recommendations for the Achievable Dream. Item D includes several recommendations from the Policy Review Committee. Item D1 is a recommendation for Policy 4-56, licensed personnel, role of professional teaching staff, conditions of employment. D2 is Policy 4-67, investigating reporting alcohol or drug use. D3 is Policy 5-34, student conduct, with Regulation 5-34.1, student conduct on school buses. And B is Regulation 5-34.2, cheating and plagiarizing. Policy 5-36 is item 4, conduct invoking punitive action, with Regulation 5-36, hazing, assault and battery, profane, obscene, and abusive language or conduct when bullying. 4B is Regulation 5-36, weapons, explosives, and fireworks. And item D, C is Regulation 5-36, trespassing upon school property. Policy 5-37 is reporting data about school violence and crime. Regulation 5-42.1, property damage and theft. And Policy 7-21, citizens advisory committees. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Mrs. Riggs has made the motion, seconded by Mrs. Melnick. The voting board is ready. consent agenda is approved. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the personnel report. As we gave you an amended version earlier during our workshop with a few additions. Mrs. Holtz has made the motion, seconded by Mrs. Melnick. The voting board is ready for your vote. The personnel report and administrative appointments have been approved. Dr. Spence, would you like to introduce our new administrators?
I would. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. If I could ask Tashina Wiggins to please stand up. Ms. Wiggins has served with distinction as a teacher in Norfolk Public Schools, also at Betty F. Williams and SeaTac Elementary School here in Virginia Beach, most recently as a reading specialist and instructional coach in Title I programs in Chesapeake Public Schools. And this evening, I'm pleased that you've accepted our recommendation for her to serve as next assistant principal at Green Run Elementary School. Congratulations. And I believe you have some guests with you.
Yes, I have my husband, Enrique Wiggins, my son, Enrique Wiggins Jr., my daughter, Taylor Wiggins, my dad, Burnett C. Wilson, my mom, Anna Wilson, my sister, Janita Lawrence, and my niece, Rhianna Lawrence, and Prince, Barbara Womack, and Kathy Womack, and Madison and Miranda. Nice.
Thank you all for being here. If I could ask Angela Mullen to please stand up. Ms. Mullen has served as a teacher in the CSEP program, as a teacher at Western Branch Middle School and Chesapeake Public Schools. Most recently has been serving as the school improvement specialist at Corporate Landing Middle School. And this evening, I'm pleased that you've accepted our recommendation for her to serve as the next assistant principal at Corporate Landing Middle School. Congratulations. I understand you have some guests with you. Thank you. We just want to say thank you all for being here and for allowing us to work with your spouses and family. And thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman. That completes our report.
Thank you, Dr. Spence. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the Environmental Studies Program. The motion is made by Mrs. Rye and seconded by Mrs. Melnick. Is there any discussion? Mr. Edwards.
I'm going to support the program, but I continue to have some concerns about the transportation piece and the availability of buses, but more specifically bus drivers as well. I know we've had to shortchange some of our existing programs, but I mean, this is something where it's going to happen a couple of years from now. So I'm hopeful that we can be in a position to support that and all the other programs as well.
Thank you. Mrs. Weems?
Okay, yes, the situation has changed since we talked about it a couple of years ago, wasn't it? And I just want to publicly thank Ms. Brock for the generous donation. It was probably said a couple of weeks ago, but I wasn't here. But due to her generosity, I think it's gonna happen and go forward, and we're very thankful and excited as a community. This is gonna be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weems. Ms. Manning?
Mr. Edwards and Miss Weems said everything I was going to say. Thank you.
Mrs. Rye? Oops, sorry.
I just wanted to add the letters of support that the superintendent solicited, that I took more time to read this time, from all the local institutions of higher education, as well as even some city agencies. I mean, I think we've seen, like with the most recent Academy, Kempsville, how those partnerships from the get-go just are so critical to the early success of that program, I'm convinced, and I see the same happening here.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
I too want to echo my gratitude for Mrs. Brock and really all of the partnerships as Mrs. Wright was talking about, and we'd like to see more of those things. So if someone's out there watching and really has a fire in their belly to create something amazing with Virginia Beach Public Schools, we'd love to hear from you. But the program itself, we talk about the jobs of the future not existing today. This is the kind of stuff And I'm really excited that we'll be able to offer this in-depth program to these students because understanding of these environmental concepts is going to become so important in the next decade, 20 years. I think it's really going to surprise us how much it will be in need. So I'm very excited. We are looking to approve this tonight.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Dr. Spence, I think you'd like to make a comment?
I would appreciate the opportunity just to make a quick comment. I want to echo our thanks for Mrs. Brock and for her generosity in this. And I don't want to be presumptuous about the action you're about to take, but we want to thank the school board for supporting this. And just in particular, Dr. Pohl and the secondary science team in particular, Anna Single, when she was working on the project, and Amanda Malvin since then have really been instrumental in pulling this curriculum together. And I want to acknowledge that and thank them as well. But we're excited. I truly believe this will put us on the forefront of environmental education in the country, and obviously that's something that we all believe is critically important, particularly here in Virginia Beach. So thank you for your support.
Mrs. Riggs?
Oh, I put yes instead of that. I'm very excited that we're finally doing this program. I was excited when you presented it to us at our workshop last year, and that Mrs. Brock has stepped up to the plate. Thank you so much. And to all of our businesses that are, involved in this. The Brock Center is one of my favorite places to go. And seeing what they have and the cutting edge of everything and our students being able to have that privilege to go there, I just think that we are just so lucky. Not only to have that facility, but to be here in the area to have that facility there. So I'm so glad we are being able to take advantage of this. So thank you.
I just want to say I thank my colleagues for making the comments, and I too echo everything that has been said. I have a few reservations about our transportation system, but I think we're going to be able to handle it. We've been assured that is going to happen, and but I'm thrilled that we're going ahead with this program. I think it's something that's going to put us on the cutting edge of education throughout the country. So people are going to look to us and say, wow, you did what? So I'm pleased that we're doing this. Mr. Edwards.
To not utter the words Chesapeake Bay Foundation would be like somewhat remiss. And they are clearly our partners, obviously enabled by Mrs. Brock. But today is Giving Tuesday, and Chesapeake Bay Foundation would be worth a couple clicks on your computer. So think about that.
Right.
They are our partners, and they do a tremendous environmental effort through hundreds of miles of the East Coast here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Very timely. The voting board is open for your vote. The Environmental Studies program has our approval. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the proposed resolution directing the superintendent to develop school start time options that allow adolescent students to start school later. The motion is made by Mrs. McLeod and seconded by Mrs. Manning. Is there any discussion? At this time, I would like Mr. McDonald, before we ask any questions, I'd like Mr. McDonald to read the resolution. Thank you.
Resolution of the Virginia Beach City Public School Board concerning school start times. Whereas in July 2015, the school board of the city of Virginia Beach directed the administration to review start times based on medical evidence that later start times are beneficial to the well-being of adolescents. And whereas in the spring of 2016, a transportation study was conducted on the feasibility of changing school start times. And whereas in the spring of 2017, a survey of stakeholders was conducted about school start times. And whereas survey results indicated that 78% of parents, 73% of staff, and 71% of students agreed that later start times are beneficial to the health, safety, and well-being of adolescents. And whereas survey results indicated that only 36% of parents are currently satisfied with school start times. And whereas in July of 2017, the administration recommended to the school board that start times for schools be modified based on a study of options and stakeholder feedback. Now therefore be it resolved that the school board of the city of Virginia Beach hereby directs the superintendent to develop a school start time options that allow adolescent students to start school later, and be it further resolved that in developing options for the school board to consider, the superintendent and administration will take the following factors into consideration: the 2016 transportation study from School Bus Consultants, the 2017 survey of VBCPS stakeholders on school start times, relevant research studies on adolescent sleep patterns, start times, social emotional needs, academic achievement, student attendance, and graduation data, operational and facility needs to support the shift in times, community input through focus groups or forums to review and gather feedback on options for school start times, and the need for a comprehensive communication plan about any changes to school start times, and be it finally resolved that the school start time options and an administrative recommendation be presented to the school board during the July 2019 Retreat for Information, with subsequent action to be taken by the school board in September 2019, with a planned implementation of new start times scheduled for September 2020.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Is there further discussion? Mrs. Manning? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we already seconded. We already did that, yeah. Mrs. Manning?
I just want to thank staff for all of their hard work. I know it's been a while since we really discussed this, but Mr. Keever and everyone that helped with this, I think that we had, I was very pleased with the survey that was conducted and the participation rate. I think it's pretty overwhelming that the results were overwhelming that the community wants this change. I'm going to go home to a son that's not going to agree with me, so I do support this change, and I just thank everybody for their hard work. Thank you, Dr. Spence, also.
Okay. Is there further discussion? Okay. Seeing none, the voting board is open for your vote. The school start times will be adjusted for the school year 2020. Is that correct? However, you'll be able to bring that back to the board for final approval. Is that correct?
We'll bring that to in July 2019.
In July of 2019. Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the creation of an ad hoc committee for a review of the school board's code of ethical and professional conduct for members, with school board members Daniel Edwards, Joel McDonald, and Trenace Riggs serving on the ad hoc committee and returning a recommendation to the school board during the month of February 2019. The motion is made by Mrs. Melnick, seconded by Mrs. Holtz. Is there discussion? Mrs. Manning?
Yeah, this is the first I'm hearing about this. Is this, I'm just interested in knowing what the goal is of the committee. We did this not too long ago. Could you explain what the goal is of the committee?
Mr. Edwards?
The it's on a 2-year cycle, and we generally, with new board members coming, all go through the process of reviewing, discussing, and then ultimately signing. And we're just doing what we've done every 2 years over the last few years. So.
Okay, thank
And
you.
obviously, the committee's happy to hear input from everybody on the board before we meet. That would save time.
Okay.
In the long
When
run.
will you be meeting?
Pardon?
Do you have a meeting date yet?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. McLeod?
Can you repeat who will be serving on the committee?
Mr. Edwards, Mr. McDonald, and Ms. Riggs.
And how were these determined when many
It's
on the
appointed by the chair.
board? Okay, so you've taken your personal liberty to choose the people on the
Yes,
committee.
ma'am. That's
Okay.
the way it's written in our bylaws.
And that's fine. I just want to make that clear to everyone watching. But to Mrs. Manning's point that some of us, this is the first time, but I will let you know that actually I have served on this twice with Brent McKenzie and Todd Davidson back in the day, and that was where Mr. Edwards appointed me to that spot to serve on that committee.
Thank you for your input. Any other discussion? Seeing none, the voting board is open. The ad hoc committee has been approved. The first item under information this evening is the school counseling program, K through 12, comprehensive evaluation, college and career component, K through 12.
Good evening, Chairwoman Anderson, Vice Chair McDonald, members of the school board, and Dr. Spence. I'm Dr. Allison Bach, a program evaluation specialist in the Office of Research and Evaluation. Tonight, I'll provide Okay, sorry. I'm Dr. Allison Bach, a Program Evaluation Specialist in the Office of Research and Evaluation. Tonight, I'll provide an overview of the key findings and recommendations from the comprehensive evaluation of the school counseling program's college and career component. The evaluation report you received in your agenda materials provides additional details. The design and delivery of the VBCPS school counseling program is based on the American School Counselors Association, or ASCA, national model, and is focused on 3 domains: academic, college and career, and personal and social. As a reminder, the evaluation of the program's academic component was presented to the school board last year, and the evaluation in 2018-19 will focus on the personal and social domain. This evaluation focuses on the college and career domain. Within this domain, school counselors are responsible for a range of activities such as providing college and career awareness, exploration, and selection activities, scheduling and promoting college night, college representative visits, and career fairs, facilitating students' completion of academic and career plans, and supporting college admissions at the high school level. The school counseling program's 185 school counselors and guidance department chairs serve all 67,000 students in kindergarten through grade 12. And the program is based on a comprehensive and developmental approach that consists of counseling services to individuals and groups, classroom guidance services including academic planning, consultations with parents, teachers, administrators, and community agencies, and coordination efforts for orientation programs, parent workshops, and college and career information. The comprehensive evaluation examined operational components such as staff allocations, school counselors' responsibilities and activities related to college and career, professional learning, and parent involvement. We also examined data regarding students who worked with their counselor, progress made toward the program's college and career-related goals and objectives, and stakeholders' perceptions. Data were collected primarily through surveys, and response rates are shown on this slide. Other data were collected from document reviews, meetings with program managers, and the data warehouse. Staffing was an area assessed as part of the program's operational components. The chart on this slide shows the recommended number of students per full-time counselor based on ASCA in yellow and the Virginia Standards of Quality in black. The ASCA recommendation is 1 full-time counselor for every 250 students across the division. The SOQ recommendations vary by school level. The purple bars depict the number of students for each school counselor allocation at each Virginia Beach school level in 17-18. VBCPS school counselor allocations met the SOQ guidelines but did not meet the ASCA recommendation. As a note, 12 additional allocations were added for high school counselors for the current 18-19 school year, which are not represented in this figure. Staff members were asked survey items about whether school counselor allocations allowed the program to meet students' needs and whether caseloads allowed adequate time to counsel students. Agreement was relatively low across all stakeholder groups, but was lowest for high school staff, shown in gray, especially high school counselors. School counselors were asked to approximate the percent of time they spent in a typical week working with students in each of the 3 domains of the school counseling program. As can be seen here, elementary and middle school counselors spent the largest percentage of their time working with students on personal and social issues, followed by academics. High school counselors reported spending about 1/3 of their time in each area. In a separate survey item, school counselors were asked to rank 7 primary responsibilities in terms of where they spent the most and least amount of their time, including 5 responsibilities within the 3 domains, as well as administrative tasks and professional learning. The rankings confirm the pattern that school counselors spent the most time on mental health issues and academic planning across the 3 levels. In addition, administrative tasks were ranked third in terms of time spent, along with college-related tasks for high school counselors. In response to a survey item about areas for improvement, school counselors as well as other stakeholders noted the need for additional support so that school counselors could spend less time on administrative tasks and more time working with students. Staff were asked their perceptions of whether expectations for school counselors within the college and career domain were clearly defined, and teachers were asked if they understood the role of school counselors in the college and career domain. Results for college-related expectations are shown in the first chart, and results for career-related expectations are shown in the second chart. As shown by the orange and gray bars, the majority of staff at the middle and high school levels agreed that expectations for college and career counseling were clearly defined and teachers understood the role of school counselors. Agreement percentages were lower at the elementary school level, especially related to expectations for college-related counseling. Professional learning is another important component of the ASCA model. During 2017-2018, 4 mandatory professional learning opportunities were provided to all school counselors, and 2 mandatory sessions were provided for new school counselors. In addition, 17 optional sessions were offered to all school counselors, several of which were related to college and career preparation, as shown on the slide. High percentages of school counselors across the division reported that they received adequate professional learning opportunities. Part of the school counselor's role is to collaborate with and engage parents. When parents were directly asked about having a clear understanding of school counselors' responsibilities and their role in students' education, between 48 and 67% of parents agreed. 65% of elementary parents were satisfied with the level of communication with their child's school counselor, and 41 to 45% of middle and high school parents were satisfied. High school and middle school parents were more likely than elementary school parents to indicate that they knew who their child's school counselor was. When students were asked about working directly with their school counselor, high percentages of students at each school level reported that they knew who their school counselor was and met with their counselor at least once during the school year. The majority of elementary students agreed that their school counselor understood their college and career goals and challenges, with lower agreement at the secondary level. The evaluation also assessed the extent to which the school counseling program was meeting 11 objectives related to the program's role in supporting students' college and career preparation. The first 4 objectives focused on school counselors helping students believe that using their abilities to the fullest extent would allow them to achieve high-quality results, applying self-motivation and self-direction in learning, and demonstrating advocacy skills. Across these objectives, elementary student agreement was highest, followed by middle and high school students. Other objectives focused on school counselors helping students become aware of program options in middle or high school, become aware of academic and career pathways, improve students' understanding of career options, as well as enrolling in courses that allow students to apply media and technology skills related to their career interests and participate in enrichment and extracurricular activities that are related to their career interests. Across these 5 objectives, elementary student agreement was again the highest, followed by middle and high school students. The next 3 objectives focused on school counselors helping students understand that lifelong learning and post-secondary education are necessary for long-term career success, ensuring that experiences in VBCPS allow students to reach their post-high school goals, and helping students become aware of scholarship opportunities. A majority of students at each level agree that they understood the importance of lifelong learning, and relatively high percentages of students agree that their experiences in VBCPS would allow them to reach their post-high school goals. Less than one half of high school students indicated that they were aware of scholarship opportunities, but this percentage increased to 65% for 12th graders. General perceptions of the school counseling program were also assessed. This chart shows that overall high percentages of students agreed that their school counselor was available to them, helped them with questions or problems, and believed that all students can succeed. Staff members' overall perceptions about the school counselors were also very positive. At least 81% across the division agreed with similar survey items about the school counselors' accessibility, actions, and beliefs. When asked to indicate their level of satisfaction with their school's counseling program, 91% of fifth graders, 78% of middle school students, and 60% of high school students indicated that they were satisfied. Parent satisfaction levels were the lowest of all groups surveyed. However, there were differences in parent satisfaction based on their understanding of school counselors' responsibilities and role in education. Parents who agreed that they understood counselors' responsibilities or counselors' role in education were more likely to be satisfied with the school counseling program than parents who disagreed that they understood. Staff satisfaction levels were relatively high for all groups surveyed, especially administrators. As a result of the evaluation, 6 recommendations were made. The first is to continue the program with modifications noted in the following recommendations. The second recommendation is to develop a plan to provide additional staff for 2019-2020 to support the school counseling program to allow school counselors to have additional time to meet students' needs. The third recommendation is to continue to seek additional parent engagement and education strategies to ensure increased interaction with parents and parent awareness of the role and responsibilities of school counselors. The fourth recommendation is to develop alternative methods for publicizing activities and resources available to secondary students for college and career preparation. The fifth recommendation is to review, revise as needed, and communicate expectations for elementary school counselors' responsibilities regarding college and career activities. The final recommendation is to continue to ensure that students are aware of the academic and career planning process and work to develop their academic and career plans. At this time, Dr. Kip Rogers, Chief Academic Officer, will share the administration's response.
Thank you, Dr. Bach. Good evening, Chairwoman Anderson, Vice Chair McDonald, school board members, and Dr. Spence. In consultation with Bobby Jamison, our coordinator of school counseling, as well as with student support services staff, the administration concurs with the comprehensive program evaluations reports recommendations. We also want to thank Dr. Bannicky and Dr. Janecki and Dr. Bach in Planning, Innovation, and Accountability for preparing a report with program recommendations that will guide the refinement of school counseling services for students. The evaluation design and results highlight the transformation of the profession from guidance counseling to school counseling. Virginia Beach City Public Schools values how the evolution from guidance counselor to school counselor embraces a comprehensive approach, optimizing student outcomes, and much more than just college planning. The focus areas outlined in the evaluation include emotional support, family intervention, social development, academic advising, as well as career planning. The report reaffirms how school counselors are a strong, essential member of our educational community. For recommendation number 2, VBCPS employed 185 counselors to serve our more than 67,000 students as well as their families during the 2017-18 school year. With a student-to-school counselor ratio of approximately 400 to 1, the work of the school counselors in the 2017-18 school year contributed to record scholarship totals, an increase in the number of advanced studies diplomas, an increase in the number of students pursuing post-secondary education, and the school division earning 100% accreditation. Given the impactful and diverse roles of school counselors, the Office of Student Support Services and the Department of School Leadership will address staffing options to support our schools and school counseling departments in the 2019-20 school year when discussing next year's budget. In regards to recommendation number 3, during the 2017-18 school year, the Office of Student Support Services supported the first ever Navigating the Journey event and held the annual VBCPS College Night where over 4,000 guests attended. The Office of Student Support Services also conducted 2 Parent Connection workshops. The workshop on September 21st, 2017, focused on the college application process and financial aid. The second workshop on November 16th, 2017 provided families information on graduation requirements, academic programs, and best practices when planning students' academic pathways. Additionally, the Military Connected School Counselors led several college information nights for military connected students and their families. These workshops covered information on the GI Bill, in-state tuition options, Yellow Ribbon Schools, and other resources. Moving forward, the Office of Student Support Services will partner with local organizations to provide more workshops and learning opportunities for our families. Furthermore, the school counseling departments will incorporate more community-based events in their school counseling programs to ensure that parents are aware of school counselors' roles and responsibilities. As far as recommendation number 4, VPCPS school counselors will publicize program events and activities to students, families, and community stakeholders through newsletters, school messaging systems, grade level specific correspondence, online communication tools, and a stronger social media presence. This school year, the Office of Student Support Services collaborated with the Office of Community Engagement to promote the aforementioned Military Connected College Information Night, and on September 27th, 2018, over 400 students and their family members attended the event, exceeding previous year's attendance. And as a result, the Office of Student Support Services will continue to explore alternative and collaborative methods of publicizing their events and resources. Regarding recommendation number 5, in February of 2018, the Office of Student Support Services presented the scope and sequence for academic and career planning to all of our elementary school principals. Additionally, in February 2018, as well as in April 2018, Student Support Services provided information related to this topic to elementary school counselors. Staff from the Department of Teaching and Learning provided more presentations on the entire scope and sequence, along with elementary specific activities and expectations at the Administrators Conference in July and at the first elementary school counselor meeting that was held in October. These learning opportunities will serve as the foundation for ongoing work related to the elementary school counselors' responsibilities for college and career initiatives. With regards to the last recommendation, number 6, the academic and career planning process does involve much more staff than our school counselors. School counselors across all levels collaborate with their administrative teams, with classroom teachers, gifted resource teachers, and library media specialists to implement new academic and career planning activities and resources. At the elementary level, these include goal setting with students, highlighting a career each week, along with a career cluster each month, and promoting students' research and careers of interest and providing them the opportunity to present new information to their peers. At the secondary level, school counselors and staff conduct academic and career planning activities through a minimum of 5 advisory sessions throughout the year, with different activities held at each grade level. These advisory sessions introduce the information school counselors revisit when working individually with students to discuss their interests, their goals, courses, as well as their post-secondary plans. And in closing, we're excited to announce that VBCPS remains committed to being the first school division in Hampton Roads to earn the recognized American School Counselor Association Model Program, or the RAMP, distinction. 4 schools are currently working towards earning this honor and will be preparing their applications this school year. We look forward to bringing this recognition to our premier school division. I thank you, and we are prepared to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or discussion? Mrs. McLeod?
Thank you. I have several questions. Great report. Thank you. I've always said we need more counselors, especially at the middle and high school level, and I would double it in the high school if we could. So one of my questions to that, of the 185, I've never asked this, I think is what the number you gave, are the access counselors counted in that number? I hope not either.
No, they are not.
Okay.
No.
Good. Because, and the reason why I asked that was specifically regarding your discussion regarding the scholarship, and I, through my own personal experience, that many times it's the access counselors that really are able to help with the sharing of what of scholarships are available and all that. The counselors will help to gather all the information together many times to apply for the scholarships. But I just was curious because you said that, it made me go, wait a minute, are we counting the access folks in with our regular? And I'm glad we're not. One of the other questions I have is time. How much time are our counselors allowed out of the building, out of the facility, to go and actually learn about jobs that are out there? Going to career fairs so that they can go to the Virginia Ship Repair Association when they have theirs, so they can understand some of the jobs that they may be encouraging their students to go towards when they're setting goals.
I would think that that would vary from building to building with regards to the professional development that they seek and that they have opportunities to participate in at the division level. And Mr. Jameson is not here today, but he can certainly speak more to that with regards to specific professional development that they have, so I can get that information for you at a later time.
Okay. Looks like somebody's going to pipe in too.
We certainly do partner with our colleagues in the Department of the Career and Technical Education. We have been able to have many of our counselors go on tours at some of our local businesses, such as Steel, and when there have been other business partnership opportunities that brought into our community. So sometimes they do have an opportunity to go out in the community to see what jobs are available in Virginia Beach.
I strongly recommend that part of your recommendations come back to allow more hours for that and that there's coverage. The hard part is we're saying we need you there to be counseling the students and we're taking you out, but you can't counsel well if you do not know what's available. And I can say from experience, Salem High School has my favorite counselors in the system that I've dealt with. And when one of them came to a maritime specific career fair, she simply said, I had no idea the jobs that I could be suggesting to my students. And that's what makes me bring that. So I hope you'd consider that. From one of the charts on there, it appeared that when it's awareness, the middle school seemed to get higher rankings of middle school students seem to perceive that they had a better understanding of career and what's available to them than the high school students in regard to their counselors sharing that. And so that adds to my comment to making me think that I was looking at those numbers. And if I remember correctly, it appeared middle school seemed to be better informed about careers that are out there. Maybe that, and it needs to be in that time frame too. But I just think we need to make sure that we give our counselors the benefit of, knowing what's out there, because when they meet, Tommy, who has an interest in this, they really need to know what's here in Hampton Roads, that they don't have to go to college. They don't even have to go to TCC. They can get hired and they can get the on-the-job training and make as much money as some of their peers who choose to go to college as well. I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McLeod. Those are good suggestions. Mr. Edwards?
I'm glad Ms. McLeod brought up the Access program. That's obviously an asset which supplements what we have. Can I ask, in terms of the study, were the Access counselors completely ignored in terms of their time and what they did, or?
It was just school counselors. And
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And guidance department.
In terms of the allocation of time, that one chart that had how much was spent on academics, how much was spent. I'd like to know what drives those numbers. Is that a systemic decision by the counselor, or is it a demand factor in terms of what's going on in the building and what is perceived to be needed?
Counselors are recommended to spend at least 80% of their time working directly with students, and that is primarily
I'm at a layer below that.
Okay.
That you can be working with a student in terms of academics or career in college or personal and social. Okay.
Right.
Okay. And they're working with students in that 80%, but what drives the allocation between those factors?
How they spend their time. That could be any it's unpredictable.
Mr. Edwards, as you already alluded to, a lot of it may be driven by the day needs of the building. Certainly, with our school counselors, they can have their day mapped out, prepared maybe to do things such as career advisement, classroom guidance lessons. But as you are aware, one crisis could flip the day very quickly for them. So I would say it's driven by building needs on a daily basis.
To the extent that it can be driven by the counselor and by guidance from you all, going back to Ms. McLeod's concerns at the middle school level, the lowest number on that chart was 19% at the middle school level in terms of college and career. And that, I found that number alarming. That was the smallest number. And that's where, in fact, that's so important. The College Access Program now has counselors that are working with the middle schools as well as the high schools. And I think we've got to get more focus at the middle school level on college and career. And to the extent that we can drive that number up, I think we would better serve our students.
I just adds to that interesting conversation, because there's a bit of a dilemma. I don't know if you saw the state select committee recommendations that came out about school counseling, but one of the things they talked about was providing support for administrative functions so that counselors could spend more time on mental health issues. And so I thought it was a positive, at least, that in the report, counselors reported spending a significant amount of time on social development with their students. And so if we ask them, so the converse to that is if we ask them to focus more of their time on academic and career counseling and less of their time on the social and developmental needs of the students, then we're in fact sort of not addressing some of the mental health issues that our students are dealing with. And so it's a real balancing act for our counselors, and I think that's one of the real challenges and interesting parts of their job. And as you've heard, I think a lot of that is also then driven by the day-to-day needs of the student, which is really where I think it has to lie. But I think there's no question that we need to be certainly more attentive to the academic and career planning process, and then also need to make sure that we have the appropriate staff in place to attend to the mental health needs of our students. So it's not an either or. It's got to be both.
Mrs. Rye.
So, excuse me. So I think one of the brightest spots was the evaluation of the counselors themselves. And I do think it takes a special person to enter counseling. I considered it at one point, and then life got in the way with other matters. But I was happy to see, from that the students rated their actual counselor so highly. And we're here to say we do appreciate all that they do. I think one thing we have is like a PR challenge. Because the goal of the national organization is to actively pursue collaboration with family members, and we see where there is a disconnect, and I don't doubt that in certain cases information is being shared with the students, though some of them don't even recall what is shared with them, let alone their parents. So these are, and I don't expect these to be answered today, but so, for example, 3 out of 4 high school parents report they don't know who their child's counselor is, and in fact, 1 out of 10 students did not. Have we considered a letter of introduction from the high school counselor to the family? It just was something I was going to throw out, and it doesn't have to be answered tonight. But please, any thought on that? I mean,
Yes. At the beginning of each school year, Mrs. Ride, the counselors are introduced to their school community via the parent information nights that are hosted at each high school or middle or elementary school. And as you indicated, we certainly can do better with making sure that all of our parents and students know who their counselors are.
because that does address those who come to the school, but
Yes.
it's always that's always the dilemma. What about the ones not coming? And also in that regard, the meetings that counselors have with students, particularly when it comes to the time to talk about college and which colleges to look at, do we consider inviting parents to those meetings?
Yes, we do. And I think in some instances, trying to schedule those meetings can be a challenge with work schedules and other family obligations, but parents are welcome to attend those meetings.
And how would they know? It would be the reliance would be on the student to tell
yes,
the parent?
yes, and then where there's ongoing communication.
But of
and
course,
so-
it gets back to
Yes.
parents can certainly reach out to counselors, and we hope they would, to say, I would like to be included on such and such a discussion, right? I just am not sure, and that gets back to the PR challenge of if parents fully understand the role of counselors. So, I mean, I acknowledge the dilemma, and I know there's going to be a lot of hard work speaking to that.
Yes, it will be.
Now, on the delegation front, we haven't talked much about it, but there were a few possibilities. Are you able to pose even a speculation right now on how much time would be freed up? Specifically, attendance follow-up was mentioned as something that could possibly be delegated. I even saw something about 504 assistants and SRTs. Do we know what, if any, impact that has the potential to have to free up counselor time?
We are reviewing that right now so we can actually understand in terms of numbers. The consideration we have to take under consideration is that things for SRT, there's no set number because, again, that's driven by student need. Certainly, the same with Section 504. Again, that's based on, student need, and that's a number that fluctuates based on what is needed for the individual student.
The attendance follow-up to me seemed like the one maybe with the most potential.
Yes, and they do spend a lot of time with the attendance.
And so then my final comment is just about, again, the college options, and with the high school students feeling it still falls short, and I don't know what the answer is. And I know a lot of families do eventually go to outside resources, and I don't think it is our job to cover the gamut, but I hope, and I know the question was posed, that we are spending time getting into actual colleges as well. I mean, I wouldn't have wound up at the college I did if my high school counselor hadn't suggested it as an option. And so I just wanted to throw out there that I hope we continue to promote that. And it continues to be a misconception here. Going out of state is not necessarily more expensive, and especially for private schools with the financial need-based aid they offer, it can be cheaper, and it just can be very frustrating for me when that information is not shared. Okay. But thank you again for for all our students, all you do.
Any other discussion or comments or questions? Thank you. Our next information item is the Strategic Plan Ad Hoc Committee appointments.
Good
Dr.
evening,
Ranneke,
Chairwoman.
welcome.
I'm so sorry. Are you done? Good evening, Chairwoman Anderson, Vice Chairman McDonald, members of the school board, and Dr. Spence. I'm here to provide you with the recommendations concerning membership to the Ad Hoc Strategic Plan Committee that will engage in the development of the next strategic framework. By way of reminder, our local school board policy requires the activation of an ad hoc steering committee 1 year prior to the end of the division's strategic plan, in this case, Compass to 2020. The ad hoc steering committee works to gather input and review division data. The committee members are appointed by the school board based on the recommendations of the superintendent. The superintendent also designates a staff member to serve as an administrative facilitator to the committee, and I've been designated as that staff member to function in that role. And the recommendations I'm about to share for the composition of the Ad Hoc Strategic Plan Committee represents 32 members. The individuals that you will see listed were selected to represent various internal and external stakeholders, including teachers, parents, students, administrators, business leaders, military, and higher education representatives. All of the individuals have been contacted and have agreed to serve pending final approval by the school board. The recommendations for the Ad Hoc Strategic Plan Committee include Freddie Larkin, Principal, Corporate Landing Middle School; Natalie Allen, Chief Media and Communications Officer, Department of Media and Communications; Lisa Bannicky, Maggie Barber, Associate Dean of Educator Preparation at Old Dominion University. Diana Burke, Executive Director of the Virginia Beach Hotel Association. Jim Cervera, Chief of Police, Virginia Beach. Matt Delaney, Principal, Salem High School. Charlene Guerin, Principal, Allenton Elementary School. Catherine Gatier, Small Business Owner of Catherine's Catering. Deborah Grant, Chair of the Interfaith Alliance Board. Sean Hirano, who's an Instructional Technology Specialist at Plaza Middle School. Chris Jacobs, a teacher at Green Run High School. Laretha Johnson, a teacher at Newtown Road Elementary School. Shelley Jones, the Tidewater District Director for the PTA and also a VBCPS social worker. Scott Miller, President of Virginia Wesleyan University. Ronnie Myers-Daub, Executive Director of the Office of Programs for Exceptional Children. Debbie Patch, Regional School Liaison Officer of the Navy Region Mid-Atlantic. Suzanne Phelps, Community Relations Specialist, Virginia Beach Parks and Recreation. Christopher Paulus, member of the Technical and Career Education General Advisory Council. Donald Robertson, Chief Schools Officer, Department of School Leadership. Kip Rogers, Chief Academic Officer, Department of Teaching and Learning. Leon Rowson, Dean, School of Education at Norfolk State University. Tina Santee, parent and also a member of the Special Education Community Advisory Committee. Laura Solomon, a parent who's also a military spouse. Aaron Spelling, the superintendent. Spence, I don't know who I work for. That's my new boss's name. I believe his name is Aaron Spence, and I've heard really good things about him. Okay, Angelique Stalling, student at Green Run High School, now red. Alexis Starks, student at Ocean Lakes High School. Michael Summers, Provost, Tidewater Community College. Ron Taylor, President, Men of Faith. Chad Vincelette, Captain, Executive Director of Naval Air Station Oceana. Kelly Walker, President, Virginia Beach Education Association. And Gunter Weisenseal, President of IMS Gear, Virginia Incorporated. Chairwoman Anderson, Vice Chairman McDonald, members of the school board, and Dr. Spence. This concludes the recommendations for appointment to the Ad Hoc Strategic Plan Committee, and at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mrs. McLeod.
From our workshop version of this, I had suggested additional business and industry folk, and Gunter is fantastic from IMS Gear, and he wasn't on the original list. But I want to ask, how many additional folks? This is very heavy with academic education people, which makes sense for a school system to have that. But to make sure the catering lady, the Catherine's, Debbie or
We have
Diane Burke from
right.
Hotel and Tourism, what there, and then Gunter from this. It could be that Christopher Paulos is also, may have
Representing some business
another
contacts
business
as well.
that he has
Right.
as well. But what additional did we reach out to make sure the business community was involved? Or were there, or is this all that responded in the affirmative?
These were the ones that we reached out to. We were looking at, if we compare the previous year, when we did this process the last time to this time, we made sure that we had the same level of representation of our groups.
Mm-hmm.
So based on, I wasn't at the workshop or the closed session where you had the discussion. I did follow up and reached out to Diana Burke, Gunter, and Leon Rowson, because there was a suggestion to reach out to Norfolk State University to be a part of the group.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, suggestions? Thank you, Dr. Bannicky.
Thank you.
Item C is next on information, and it's for the ACT, SAT report for 2018 graduates.
Good evening again, School Board Chairwoman Anderson, Vice Chair McDonald, board members, and Dr. Spence. Tonight I will present an overview of ACT and SAT results for graduates in the class of 2018. The presentation will also address how our schools strive to improve student performance on these two college readiness exams. I would like to thank Dr. Doug Wren, Educational Measurement and Assessment Specialist, for his work on compiling the data and information for the presentation. I have a team of my staff who are here to assist in answering questions that you may have at the conclusion of the presentation. The presentation will focus on the performance of students who took the ACT or SAT during high school and reported their intent to graduate during or at the end of the 2017-18 school year. Before I begin, board members are reminded that scores from both the ACT and SAT measure readiness for college coursework and are accepted by all four-year college and university admissions offices. So we'll begin by making comparisons between the percent of Virginia Beach students who took the ACT and the percent of students who took the SAT in the past 2 graduating classes. The graph in front of you shows that about 62.5% of our graduates took the SAT in 2018 and 16.5% taking the ACT, slightly fewer than the previous year. It's important to note that the SAT is traditionally the more popular test in Virginia Beach as well as in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the percent of SAT test takers in our school division has remained above 60% for each graduating class since 2010. After increasing every year since the 1990s, the number of Virginia Beach students who took the ACT decreased for 2 consecutive years. This trend was the same for 2017 and 2018 graduates across the state as well as across the nation. The ACT consists of 4 subject area tests: English, mathematics, reading, and science. The score range for each of those tests is 1 to 36. This slide in front of you shows the ACT mean scores for each subject test for the Virginia Beach classes of 2017 and 2018. The mean scores for 2017 graduates are at the top of the light blue bars, and the mean scores of 2018 graduates are in bold above the darker blue bars. As you can see, the mean scores for the class of 2018 improved in English, mathematics, and science, while the reading mean score did not change from 2017. It's important to note that these are the highest ACT mean scores on record for a Virginia Beach graduating class. Students taking the ACT also obtain ACT composite scores. The ACT composite score is the average of each student's score on the 4 ACT subject tests. The graph in front of you shows the ACT composite mean scores for 2017 and 2018 graduates at the division, state, and national levels. The mean scores for public school graduates across the state are shown above the orange line. The Virginia Beach mean scores are shown in bold above the blue line. And the national mean scores are adjacent to the gray line near the bottom of the graph. At the division and state levels, the increases on ACT composite mean scores from the previous year were each 1/10 of a point. The national composite mean, again indicated near the gray line, declined 2/10 of a point from the previous year, which widened the gap between ACT test takers in Virginia Beach and across the nation to 2 3/10 points. Next, we'll talk about the percent of 2,000 graduates meeting ACT college readiness benchmarks. The ACT college readiness benchmarks are scores on the ACT subject tests that represent the level of achievement required for students to have about a 75% chance of obtaining a C or higher in corresponding credit-bearing first-year college courses. Over half of the 2018 Virginia Beach graduates who took the ACT met the benchmarks on the subject area test as shown by the numbers in bold above the blue bars. While the percentages are somewhat less than the percentage in Virginia public school graduates, shown above the orange bars, it's important to note that they are significantly higher than the national percentages shown above the gray bars. Over 75%, or 3/4 of the division's ACT test takers, reached or exceeded the benchmark in English. It's also important to note that in math and science, the percentage of test takers who met the benchmarks were the highest ever for a Virginia Beach graduating class, so progress in these areas is being made. As was shared earlier in the presentation, the more popular test for students in Virginia Beach and the Commonwealth in Virginia is the SAT. Now let's look at the results for 2017 and 18 graduates on the SAT. The current or new version of the SAT that was first administered in March 2016 comprises 2 sections: evidence-based reading and writing, or ERW, and mathematics. The minimum score on each section is 200, and the maximum score is 800. As shown in the graph, the mean scores for 2018 Virginia Beach graduates improved on both SAT sections from the preceding year. 6 points in ERW and 11 points in mathematics, indicating an upward trend in both areas. As you can see, the total mean score for Virginia Beach graduates increased substantially by 16 points from 2017 to 2018 and narrowed the gap between the division and public school graduates across the state, represented by the orange line, to just 3 points. The total mean score for the division was 39 points higher than the total group mean. That's all students internationally taking the SAT. That's shown to the right of the grade line. For clarification, in contrast to the ACT, which reports national scores, the total group for the SAT includes all 2018 graduates who took the test across the nation and internationally. The slide shows in front of you shows the percent of graduates in the class of 2018 who met the college readiness benchmark on one or both sections of the SAT. Similar to the ACT college readiness benchmarks, the SAT benchmarks are scores that indicate a high likelihood of a student making a C or better in a credit-bearing college course. The percent of Virginia Beach graduates who met or surpassed the ERW benchmark, shown in bold at the top of the blue bar on the left, was 2 points higher than the percent of public school graduates in Virginia, as shown above in the adjacent orange bar. The percentage of Virginia Beach graduates who met the math benchmark, as well as the percent of Virginia Beach graduates who met both benchmarks, were the same as the percentages of public school graduates in the Commonwealth. It's important to note from this data that the percent of students in the Virginia Beach class of 2018 who met or surpassed the SAT benchmarks increased from the graduating class of 2017, as shown by the red lines and the percentages. The SAT mean scores increased from 2017 for all 7 school divisions in Hampton Roads. However, graduates from Virginia Beach City Public Schools repeatedly have higher SAT scores on average than graduates of every other school division in our area. In fact, in 2018, graduates from Virginia Beach City Public Schools had the highest total SAT mean score, as well as the highest mean scores on both sections of the SAT. So to ensure that our students are prepared for the ACT and SAT, the Department of Teaching and Learning continues to implement various initiatives at all secondary schools in Virginia Beach. The ACT standards are integrated into our middle and high school English, math, and science courses. We recognize that we would like to see more students take advantage of the ACT, as doing so has implications for college admission as well as scholarship opportunities. We plan to work very closely with Student Support Services and Mr. Jameson on strategies to increase participation on the SAT and the ACT. We have administered the PSAT to all of our 8th graders for 4 consecutive years, and we continue to offer PSAT at no cost to every 9th, 10th, and 11th grade student. Research indicates that students who take the PSAT multiple times do better on the SAT than students who take the PSAT only once or even not at all. 3 years ago, we implemented an online learning program through Khan Academy for all of our students to take a personalized SAT course in their English 10 classes. Next semester, these students will use their PSAT results from the fall to complete this online course, which is designed to strengthen their skills for the SAT. Funding is also provided to each school to create face-to-face opportunities for site-based improvement plans. This concludes the presentation on the ACT and SAT results for graduates from the 2017-18 school year. The team and I will be happy to answer questions that you may have regarding these results.
Thank you, Dr. Rogers. Do we have any discussion? Any questions? Mr. Edwards.
Do we know how many took advantage of that online opportunity?
All of our students, I'll let.
So it's a requirement for all 10th graders to complete the course. The English 10 teachers have to receive a completed assessment from them after they complete it. However, this year with the implementation of Schoology, we've beefed up the course even more. So there's a full online modular learning unit for all the students through Schoology. So we'll have a better reporting of how many students fully complete every single part of that course.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. Rye?
Hi. So I was very happy to hear you mention the recognition that the ACT number we'd like to see higher. It's frankly discouraging to me that it's crept up so slowly. The only thing I would ask when you speak again with Mr. Jameson, he and I spoke a year ago, and we have one or two high schools that are outliers where there's a lot of kids taking it, and he gave me, there's strategies the school's using, so I would hope that we can spread back best practices to the other schools. I mean, you alluded to it, but the fact is that some students do better on the ACT, and there's no way to know unless you take both tests. And that's why I get so frustrated, because this, for a lot of our kids with the colleges, and we know with the whole discussion with class rank, that the top three things the colleges look at now are GPA, course selection, and standardized testing is still always going to be important because it's the one uniform measurement. So I plead and beg that we see this number go up. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you. Thank you for the information. It is. Next, we have, under information, we have the interim financial statement for October 2018.
Good evening, Chairwoman Anderson, Vice Chairman McDonald, school board members, Dr. Spence. As of October 31st, the overall revenue trend remains acceptable at this point in the fiscal year. As mentioned in last month's board meeting, we are projecting a surplus in state revenue of approximately $1.1 million. This surplus is composed of a $1.4 million shortfall due to a lower than projected March 31st ADM, which is offset by a projected surplus of $2.5 million in the supplemental lottery per pupil allocation due to the General Assembly adopting an increase in that per pupil amount. Federal revenues continue on an acceptable trend. We have received a payment in November for a little over $4.1 million, and that will be reflected in next month's statements. This next slide shows that the sales tax receipts are still lagging behind compared to previous years, and as we brought to the board last month, that is due to a timing difference regarding the June 2018 accelerated taxes. There were some changes in the Appropriation Act language and gave them some time to finalize those numbers. We have just recently been notified that those numbers have been finalized, and we are expected to receive that payment at the end of this month, and so we hopefully will be back on track by next month. And this final graph shows that our expenditures and encumbrances trend is also acceptable at this point in the fiscal year as well. And that concludes the presentation. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions, comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item F. I'm sorry, item E is the school, I almost skipped that one, and I know we have somebody in the audience who's been waiting for a while on this one. Item E is the school board legislative agenda for 2019 General Assembly session.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight, for information, we have the 2019 legislative agenda. I want to thank my fellow board members on the committee, Ms. Melnick, Ms. McLeod, for their work on this, as well as the very supportive efforts of Dr. Bergen, Ms. Linetti, Mr. Sutton, and of course we have the other Joel, Mr. Joel Andrus, in the audience tonight to back me up with additional information or answers to questions after we review this. So as you remember, we workshopped this at our last meeting, and I believe we have captured the changes discussed at the workshop. But for your pleasure and the public's viewing pleasure, We'll touch on some of the major items without trying to read this word for word. Our legislative agenda, of course, starts out with the budget, which we remind our delegation of their obligation to fund K-12 public education, and highlighting that that has declined by 7% per pupil since 2015, which is $628 per pupil. And that cost of educating these students has not declined during that same period. There's a number of things that we can talk to them about that should be funded, and a couple of them we have in other sections of our legislative agenda. But of course, school safety is at the top of everyone's mind when it comes to public education in our schools. So we believe, of course, that first and foremost, our important priority is to create a safe educational environment that's conducive to student learning. And everyone should remember the Blue Ribbon panel that was put together by VBCPS and the recommendations that came out of there. The state legislature, and specifically the House Select Committee on School Safety, really followed a lot of the recommendations that were made out of that committee. And there's two specific legislative recommendations that we have. One is echoing some of the discussion that we've had earlier, which is about increasing funding for additional behavior and mental health staff to aid in early identification and support of students exhibiting mental health needs, so that we can better identify and help those students who may be in crisis before they might cause harm to themselves or harm to others. This, the House Select Committee on School Safety, of course, as mentioned earlier, is talking about trying to relieve some of the burden of guidance counselors, but the conversation we'll be having with our delegation is that it really goes beyond counselors who have pretty full plates already, and even hiring additional admin support really doesn't go far enough when the additional resources we need are more mental health clinicians, attendance and interventionists, behavior specialists, and even getting down into those positions that have been impacted by the support caps, including social workers, additional guidance counselors, school psychologists, and other instructional support personnel. A lot of these positions have been limited, or the state funding for these positions have been limited since the recession. And this conversation about needing these resources to help these students who are in need is both timely and one we've been talking about for years. But hopefully now people are recognizing the critical role that these employees play in helping our students. The second recommendations in the school safety is to allow retired law enforcement officers to continue to receive their retirement via VRS, even while serving as a school security officer in a local school. We're hoping that this will, that they'll be able to work in conjunction with our school resource officers to provide the safety, security, and welfare of students, staff, and visitors by maintaining order and discipline. And we're hoping that this will allow us to, not only us, but divisions around the Commonwealth to hire high-quality retired law enforcement officers to serve in these capacities. About special education services, we want to deliver, of course, quality special education services. We have more than 7,900 students who qualify for special education services. We're annually spending $106 million on these services. Of this amount, approximately 15% comes from the federal government, 20% comes from the state, and 65% is local. We are opposed to any change in delivery of special education services or special education funding that would shift even a larger portion of this funding responsibility to locality. We're also encouraging members of the General Assembly to continue to work with our federal delegation to encourage the U.S. Department of Education and Congress to fully fund their portion of special education services in Virginia. Lottery fund usage, we support the additional flexibility that has been provided through recent investments in lottery proceeds. We continue to be opposed to any measure that would shift standards of quality or other recurring costs to lottery funds. A new item this year on our legislative agenda is the calling for dedicated state funding for capital improvements. We support the reinstatement, because this used to happen, the reinstatement of dedicated state funds for capital improvements. Since 2010, local governments and school boards have carried the full burden of capital improvements for public schools. Those that follow our conversations regarding building replacements in Virginia Beach know how heavy a burden this is. and we believe that the state should be partners in getting that done. Issues supported by VBCPS, a new item is a waiver for emergency evacuations. This was highlighted by the events of this past hurricane season when we were required to close our schools when mandatory evacuations were ordered for Zone A in Hampton Roads. We're seeking legislation that would provide an automatic waiver of the 180-day or 990-hour requirement for those divisions impacted by mandatory evacuation orders when called by the state or federal government. We are, however, committed to making a good faith effort and making up lost instructional time whenever schools are required to close. However, additional flexibility provided by this waiver may be necessary should future weather events cause additional closures. We continue to support legislation regarding dual enrollment and any regulatory reforms that would allow school divisions and local community colleges to negotiate individual rates for public school students who through the local school division take dual enrollment courses. We continue to support reform of current assessment system, a reduction of the number of required SOL tests, and allowing school divisions to substitute SOL assessments for those that are performance-based, mimic real-life situations, and better prepare students for success in higher education in the workplace. We support teacher and principal superintendent accountability systems that include additional measures such as student participation, performance, and advanced placement courses, postgraduate measures that provide information on how students transition after school, and other qualitative measures of overall school performance beyond assessments. We continually call for the elimination or funding of currently unfunded mandates. As a reminder, the total impact of state and federal unfunded mandates to VBCPS is $44 million annually. Of that $44 million, approximately $16 million are mandates that originate from either the General Assembly or Virginia Department of Education. And we're opposed to any state mandates requiring local school divisions to assume additional responsibilities or asking that the state share of funding for such mandates be provided. Issues opposed by VBCPS, mandatory funding of virtual school. We're opposed to any legislation that would require any portion of state or local funding to follow the student when the student chooses to enroll in a virtual school outside his or her school division. But we do support online blended models that incorporate the individual needs of the student as well as full-time state-operated virtual programs, such as Virtual Virginia. On the matter of charter schools, we continue to be opposed to any legislation that would remove the local school board's authority to establish charter schools within its boundaries, including any change to the Virginia Constitution or legislation that would give the Virginia Board of Education the authority to create charter schools. And we continue to oppose legislation that would allow non-public school systems to participate in interscholastic programs in public schools. The fundamental principle here is to ensure a level playing field for competition such that all participants are following the same standards of eligibility. And of course, the full text of the legislative agenda was included in the agenda packet for both the board's and public's perusal. And with that, myself, or more likely, Mr. Joel Andrews, will answer your questions.
Do we have any questions? Mr. Andrews, excuse me, Mr. Andrews, would you like to come forward? I'm sure we have someone who would like to ask a few questions. Mr. Edwards.
I don't like the summary sheet that we have on the screen because it says we're opposed to charter schools. I think, we need to, if we're going to present it in this sort of a summary fashion, we need to get the additional information in regarding our concerns about local involvement in charter schools. But that sort of like bounced off like, no, we're not. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, do we have, Mrs. Manning, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, it's on that point. I just wanted to clarify the charter school issue. We're not opposed. We have our own charter school here, so we're not opposed to charter schools. Can you explain that a little further?
I mean, I'm happy to read what we. I mean, it is in the legislative agenda that we are opposed to legislation that would remove local school boards' authority to establish charter schools within its boundaries. And I apologize if the slide is misleading. I think it was just an attempt to quickly summarize what is a 3-page document. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I understood.
Just want to make sure that the public doesn't perceive it that way as well. So thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions or clarifications? Ms. Melnick?
Despite the decrease in state funding, I just want to say that when I go to Richmond this year with my committee, my intention is to use Virginia Beach City Public Schools as a model because, and thanks to all of you, you make our job really easy. But this Virginia Beach City Public Schools is truly the best return on tax dollars, and I intend to take that message forward, despite the decrease in funding, and I'm in agreement with everything up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Riggs?
Did I hit the right button this
No.
time?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to comment on the lottery fund usage. When we were at the VSBA conference the week before Williamsburg, the lottery, Virginia Lottery, gave us some statistics, and in fact, there is more money being spent towards our schools. So I wanted to just kind of give a kudos to say that, and they gave us these pamphlets that were really, pretty informative. And this past year, for Virginia Beach, $32,798,563.38. Now, I'm sure, I don't know how much we saw of each thing, but there's a large array of things that they've included that they're supporting. So I did want to point that out to show that they are doing better by us, by the public schools.
What should be understood regarding lottery fund usage is that while they do raise that money and it does go to education, the General Assembly chooses how that money is used.
Exactly.
And a lot of that funding has been supplanted for things that they should already be funding, SOQ items, which is why we say that SOQ items shouldn't be shifted to lottery funds, that it really should be additional money above and beyond what the state should already be providing.
Right. And thanks for adding that in there. But I mean, I did want to say what they've done now. Our legislatures have to step up to the plate, which they have not been doing, as we know.
Just an add-on to that, should you be getting questions about that, because that comes up fairly often. I've heard several times in conversations with folks up in the General Assembly that, we have put additional lottery dollars back into public education, and you could use those for CIP projects. And the reality is there is some flexibility to that, but the other reality to that is that we haven't made up the loss in operational dollars from the state, and so we've had to use, as every school division in the state of Virginia that I've spoken to about this has had to use those dollars for operational costs, and so it hasn't provided the lost dollars that those used to go to supplement CIP funding, and so that's an important point that I think we need to continue to make.
But the reason I wanted to point that out is because people are always asking, what happened to the Virginia Lottery? We thought, we voted on this because they said they were going to put money towards the public education. But being able to bring this out so people can see what's happening, up in our legislative chambers up there where they should be stepping up to the plate. So thanks for clarifying that.
Madam Chair, I would also just add that sometimes what will happen, particularly in difficult budget years, is that they will shift more stuff to the lottery fund. And so decreasing some of those general fund dollars that we get. And so they're still funding public education through those lottery funds, but there's that pie is now getting split up in more ways. So that is one thing that we always keep a watch out for.
Right. Ms. McLeod?
We simply want the lottery funds that are an additional, not in lieu of.
Right.
That's the gist.
Exactly.
We want them to, don't use that. Should be additional to help with the one-time funding things and to help with CIP, not to be part of. So not in lieu of.
Right, thank you. I think the public doesn't understand that the General Assembly has, they found a way to use lottery toward education, supplanting it with, instead of giving it as additional, they just have supplanted it with part of the budget that they send out to us, so. Anyway, any other questions or comments?
Madam Chair, if it's possible, and if there's no objection, I would ask that this be moved to remaining action items, as we'd like to get this sent to media and communications for beautification, so that we can get this to our delegation ahead of the session.
this evening
Yes, well, at the end of the meeting, yes.
for voting on remaining actions? Is there objection?
I was not prepared. I didn't thoroughly look through it, so I would have liked to have some more time to be able to review that. I do have some concerns with some of the issues here, and I'd like to have more time to review it, but it's up to the board. I'm in the minority here, so.
No, actually, if there's objection, I'm not sure we can put it on the agenda. So,
I'd make the recommendation that we send it as is to the media and communications, let them pretty it up, and then we can fix anything that we need to.
Should be able to do that,
I think so.
okay.
if they'll be flexible with us. we'll be
Mr.
flexible
Andrus,
with
is December the 11th timely enough in order to have this ready for General Assembly? That's when we would pass it. That's our next meeting. Should be no reason why that wouldn't work.
Thank you.
Okay.
I would like to note that the legislators do not like to get it this late. They like to have this in hand, and it's typically a complaint to every year that they're getting this awfully late. And we did this 2 weeks ago at our last board meeting. We discussed all of this.
It's fine. We will roll with it.
We did discuss it at our last meeting.
Okay, go ahead. We can have a vote.
Okay. So it sounds like we're ready to move it to action at the end of this meeting then. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Next on our information this evening is bylaw 1-14. Bylaw 114 has to do with compensation and expenses regarding school board member communication stipend. The stipend will be approximately $100 per month to compensate school board members for the use of their cell phones and internet service. Ms. Linetti, would you like to address this?
Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, school board members, and Dr. Spence, on behalf of the Policy Review Committee, we're bringing forward 2 revisions to bylaws. Bylaws don't always go to the Policy Review Committee. We have in the last couple of years been looking at them. In this case, it was brought to the attention of the Policy Review Committee that there were some concerns about compensation issues. So after talking with the Policy Review Committee, we thought it best to bring it to the entire school board as bylaws are your rules. So what the Policy Review Committee did is they accepted the recommendation of the school board member who brought it to their attention. And that's what you see drafted under Bylaw 114, which is to add members of the school board may elect to receive a communication allowance at the same rate authorized for chief officers. So it's not this, the Policy Review Committee didn't really take a position one way or the other. They felt it was an important enough issue to bring it to you, so they allowed it to come in this form to you. The one thing we were looking at, whether an allowance actually qualifies as compensation, that's not 100% clear, but state law does require if you do a compensation, it needs to be brought to the school board and voted on by December 31st if you have new people taking office effective January 1st of that year. So in this case, if you wanted to do this, my best advice would be to go ahead and get this voted on before December 31st. That allows new school board members coming in to take a different position and change it later on. It's just one of those quirks of the law. There is some argument to me whether an allowance actually qualifies as compensation. To be on the safe side, I thought it best that we bring that and comply with the law as it requires compensation. This would not be automatic. You would have to elect to accept it. I think at least one school board members indicated that it would not be their position to accept this. So it's not an automatic increase. If you choose to accept it, you would then get the allowance as specified in the resolution. The bylaw change.
So in other words, we would vote again in January as well, correct?
No, you vote to put it through now, and you can choose a new school board members. If there's been an election, there will be new people coming into election. They have the right to go back and change that, make an motion to change that after they come on. It's just one of those weird quirks of the law.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Ms. McLeod?
I have no skin in this game, but I actually disagree with this. Thank you for putting it in there. Someone could opt out of it, or you have to elect in. But I just want to, total up. That's an additional $1,200 a year that each person is going to be potentially compensated for. Many school systems don't provide compensation to their school boards at all, and so I'm just bringing that to the attention. I have no clue what each of our, I do believe the senior staff is on their phone all the time, as far as that goes, and I'm not sure that $100 a month warrants the usage percentage-wise of what your personal cell phone is being used for school board business. And so for that reason, I'll be voting against it, but I'm sharing my reason why. But thank you for putting the language in, because I personally would have to decline it because my work pays for my phone, although they allow me to use my phone number for other reasons.
Any other? Ms. Riggs?
I have to say that if I didn't have my phone, I wouldn't be able to keep up with a lot of the business because my work doesn't provide, I do have another job. It doesn't provide a phone for me. So I have to use my phone at my other job to make sure I'm keeping up with the information. It's important for me.
Mr. Edwards?
This would be just like health insurance. If, some of us on this board right now opt to utilize health insurance from the school division, and that's as much as $10,000 to $15,000 a year. This would simply allow board members who felt they reasonably earned through the usage of their phone and internet usage for their job, the opportunity to opt in and receive it. So I think it's appropriate.
Okay, I think each of us conduct school board business both on our phones and through our internets at home. Currently, we're not reimbursed for the use of that technology, and it's part of our daily routines as we stay in touch with constituents, stay informed about school division issues, and communicate and sometimes I do it on a daily basis with administration. So I think this is absolutely deserved, and we should all take advantage of it. So, are there any other comments? Thank you. The next is bylaw 1-38, regular meetings. Ms. Linetti?
Again, this recommendation was brought to the Policy Review Committee, and there was some discussion. You've also discussed this in your administrative portion of your workshop. The recommendation came that you relook at the change that you made to the bylaw, which had been prior to last year, the first and third Tuesday of each month, although that did change based on the calendar that you adopted, and you had changed it to the second and fourth. And the recommendation by a certain school board member was that we bring it forward and consider going back to the first and third. The concern was that you're running into certain dates you have to keep changing for that, and we've run into a couple months where we've been unable to schedule a second school board meeting for that. Again, the Policy Review Committee didn't have a strong recommendation one way or the other. They agreed this was appropriate to bring forward to discuss by the school board members, and I believe you did get a document that had both what the school board dates would be if you were doing the second and the fourth, and what they would be if you did the first and the third. And we suggest that you look at those to make sure if there were any conflicts, you were aware of what those were. And again, at the recommendation of the Policy Review Committee, we believe this is something school board members should discuss among themselves.
Right. Any other comments about this? We did receive a document earlier this evening showing the two different scenarios for that. Mrs. Weems?
Yes, for those who brought it up to change, so what exactly was the conflict on keeping it the second, fourth? You said graduation. I know in one meeting we changed to a Monday because of graduation. Was that the conflict that you're talking about? I mean, who brought it forward? Just they want to, because I just see the one conflict, which several times since I've been on the board, we've changed the first meeting that used to be the first day of school. We've always opted to change that first Tuesday meeting to Wednesday. I think either one, you're going to have a conflict through that year. And so I would still suggest that we keep it where it's not in conflict with city council, even though I know the argument is that's not really needed because only a handful of people, requested it, and I don't think they've been going to city council, whatever. But the option is there that you can come to city council. Well, I know we had a young lady tonight that came to the school board, and she also goes to city council. So I would rather just keep it as it is, because I really don't see a lot of conflict. And if we switch it, there's going to be 1 or 2 meetings where you have conflict either way.
Ms. Manning?
I agree with Ms. Weems. I think we changed this so that we could have better accessibility for the public to come and be a part of it. And I received an email just a couple of weeks ago from a constituent who said that she was pleased that she could now come to both school board and city council meetings. So I would like to keep it the way that we have it now.
Any other comments? Thank you, Ms. Londetti.
Just as a reminder, if you do make a change to this, as Mrs. Anderson mentioned, you will then have to go back to Appendix B, which are your standing rules. We'll have to make that a correction, but you normally look at those at your first meeting or the second meeting in January.
Thank you. Do we have any standing committee reports? Ms. Riggs, and then I think Ms. Holt.
I just wanted to let everyone know that all of the applicants have come in for the new Sister City Youth Ambassador, and so we'll be in looking at all of the applications. I think we have around 10 or 12, so it was good this time. So thank you to the schools and the counselors, principals that helped out with that. We will be also having a fashion show at Bishopgate on Saturday evening, and the tickets are $40. And Bishopgate it's a standalone building on Virginia Beach Boulevard, close to Sam's Club. And it used to be just a furniture department store. Now it's a department store with high-end. Dan Ryan's also located in that, so it'll be a men-women fashion show with some of our city standouts in the city that'll be modeling for. So it's $40 if anybody would like to come. I think it'll be really cool and fun to see the clothes modeled by some of our outstanding citizens out there. We will be choosing our student ambassador, and that activity or performance that they will be giving will be at MOCA on March the 1st. So I'll be giving you more information, but just heads up for that. So we're excited about it.
Thank you. Last month, actually October 24th, I attended the Community Resources Fair. It was hosted by our Virginia Beach schools at Lansdowne High, but it was sponsored by the Special Ed Advisory Committee. I guess that means they do all the work, organizational work and all that involved in that. But it was just awesome and impressive. It was a community event, and it showcased all the resources for individuals with disabilities. There were almost 70 vendors there, and they had exhibits, parents. It was very well attended. The parents could visit the exhibits, and they could speak with representatives that were involved with like assistive technology, legal services, recreational programs that they had. Also respite care. And I was just amazed that we have our own services, of course, within our school system, but there's amazing opportunities right here in our community within like a 40-mile radius that are accessible to people. And I spoke to several parents who had no idea that they existed. So I think this year was the 3rd time they had that community fair, and they'll probably have it next year. So I really recommend everybody, just for our own personal knowledge from being on the school board and knowing what's available to our students. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Holtz. Mr. Edwards?
The audit committee met last week. We had completed one additional continuing review audit, which is not posted on the SharePoint. It dealt with the management of inappropriate collection of tickets at some athletic events. And we're still a little bit behind from having focused on other things for a few weeks there, and we'll have 2 or 3 more reports in December.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Mrs. Weems?
Okay, it's time to rake leaves, folks. It's the fall. You're going to work hard all week, and then this Saturday, you're going to get out there and rake your leaves. You're going to force your teenagers to get out there and do it. It's not fun. So Green Run Collegiate students are going to help you out. They're doing a fundraiser, okay? They will rake and bag your leaves Saturday, December 1st, okay? And it is donation. You work with the students and you negotiate a price. And they are doing this to raise money for their AP exams. Okay, so Green Run Collegiate, call them, find out all the details. It's Saturday. They will rake your leaves so you can put out those holiday decorations. Okay, and if you can't make that, Green Run Collegiate is having a paint night December 6th. From 6 to 8:30, Erica Hitchcock, the fantastic artist, their art teacher, is going to teach you how to paint a beautiful canvas that you can give away as a Christmas present or Hanukkah or whatever. So from 6 to 8:30 at Green Run, and that is only $20, and it is going to include a dinner from the Olive Garden, all your supplies, and a beautiful masterpiece afterwards. I'm going to be there. I hope my colleagues, some of us will be there. So that's December 6th. Again, it's at Green Run High School, Green Run Collegiate. They are doing these 2 fundraisers to raise money for their AP exams. So I hope that y'all will take advantage and work with these students. And that's it from the Green Run Collegiate, folks.
Thank you, Mrs. Weems, for bringing us all these wonderful opportunities from Green Run Collegiate. I'm excited about it. Mrs. Rye?
Okay, so I'm going to ask Mr. McDonald and Mrs. McLeod to weigh in if needed. But I'm here to report that we did have the first meeting of the school year, the Building Utilization Committee this afternoon. And Melissa Ingram, our demographer, will be sending a report shortly, a follow-up report to the full school board. Is it okay? Some notables that we're in a good place capacity-wise. I think that's the biggest thing to come out of this. We're down about 4, I'm rounding up a little, just about 4. We're pretty steady with enrollment, down a little under 400 students this school year. Anything else?
No.
Really?
Just
Those are
so
the
there'll be
highlights?
no recommendations coming out of building utilization to do any rezoning, so everybody can be calm and enjoy your holiday.
That's the most important.
Thank
Okay,
you,
thank
Mrs.
you.
Rye. I have a procedural question. Ms. Linetti, is it possible that we can vote on the remaining action before we go into closed, or do we have to stick with?
I think if you want, it probably makes more sense because we'd have to come back and reestablish it.
Right.
So if everybody's in agreement, I think you just move it up, amend the
Is there
agenda
any
to move up.
objection from the board? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to, on the approval of the legislative agenda for 2019 General Assembly. So Mr. McDonald has made the motion, seconded by Mrs. Melnick. Is there discussion? Mrs. Manning?
So I want to thank the committee for all their hard work. I agree with the majority of items on there. I agree with all of the issues that we're supporting. I think you've done a really great job in addressing those issues, especially the unfunded mandates, so thank you for that. There are school divisions in our state that are not the quality of ours, and I can't stand in the way of charter schools for students who are in need of a quality education. And for that same reason, I'm not opposed to the money following the students for the virtual learning program as well. So for that reason, I cannot support the legislative agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any, Mr. Edwards?
I'm as concerned about those students around the state that don't have the quality of education that we do here in Virginia Beach. But what has made Green Run Collegiate successful can and could be replicated and has been replicated around the state, where the establishment of a charter is done in conjunction with the local school division. Saying that you want collaboration with the local school division does not mean you're opposed to charters. It means that it will better serve that community by having that collaboration with the school division. That's why, as I say, I don't want anybody to think that the rest of us don't support the students in places where they may not have the school division that we have here in Virginia Beach.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards, any other comments? Okay, going back to, that concludes our form.
You need to vote.
Oh. Gee, my knees. Yes, we need to vote. So the voting board is open for your vote. The legislative agenda packet has been approved. That concludes our formal meeting. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on non-agenda items?
No, ma'am.
Mr. McDonald, would you please read the motion for us to go into a closed session?
If we must. Madam Chair, I move that the school board recess into a closed meeting pursuant to exemptions from open meetings allowed by Section 2.2, 3711A, Part A, paragraphs 2 and 7 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended for student disciplinary matters, discussion or consideration of admission or disciplinary matters, or any other matter that would involve disclosure of information contained on the scholastic record containing any student of any public institution of higher education in the Commonwealth or any state school system. However, any such student legal counsel, and if the student is a minor, the student's parents, legal guardians, shall be permitted to be present during the taking of testimony or presentation of evidence at a closed meeting if such student, parents, or guardians so request in writing and such request is submitted to the presiding officer of the appropriate board pursuant to Section 2.2, 3711A2, namely to discuss student complaints and related litigation from BDEOE systematic complaint. B, legal matters, consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff members or consultants pertaining to actual or probable litigation, where such consultation or briefing in open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating or litigating posture of the public body. For the purposes of this subdivision, probable litigation means litigation that has been specifically threatened on or which the public body or its legal counsel has a reasonable basis to believe will be commenced by or against a known party, pursuant to Section 2.2, 3711A7, namely to discuss consultation with legal counsel regarding pending litigation.